Archaeology is really the only way in which we can study the really deep time history of the Australian continent. I think the archaeology of the future will look a little bit different to current archaeology. Currently, archaeologists work in close collaboration with the traditional owners of the country that they are studying. Members of the Aboriginal Advisory Group from the Willandra Lakes Region World Heritage Area work with us in the field. So every day that we're in the field, we have somebody with us, so there's somebody we can turn to for advice about matters of cultural sensitivity as and when they arise. We've been working for almost 10 years now, and I feel as though we've barely scratched the surface. But we've been laboriously building a very systematic database rather than sort of picking the eyes out of the spectacular, so that everything has a context and so that we can talk about the changing history of human settlement there. But really, we've looked at two portions of the Mungo Lunette. And there's the rest of the Lunette. There's the western shoreline. There's the Willandra Creek that fed the lakes. And there's all those other lakes. There's generations worth of work that could be undertaken in the Willandra Lakes. A lot of the archaeological traces that we find, we do study in situ. So when we're undertaking the survey to locate and document, we're describing each feature and its content and its context. And when we undertake an excavation, in a way, Mother Nature does a much better job of excavating than archaeologists when she's benign. So slightly damp conditions, strong winds, she's basically removing the encasing sediment sand grain by sand grain and just exposing what is there on the surface. So in fact, a lot of the time when we excavate a site, what we're actually doing is picking up the material that Mother Nature has exposed for us off the surface and then excavating a few centimetres down to capture the rest of the material that Mother Nature hasn't yet exposed for us. Now that does sometimes mean that some material will have been exposed and washed away before we got there, but on the other hand, the impact that the archaeologists are having on the landscape is minimal. And that's been very important to the elders. The initial archaeological work at Lake Mungo, because nobody knew anything at all about the archaeology there at that time, they sunk really deep trenches into the Lunette. And when I first went up and started talking to elders, they said, archaeologists, they dig deep holes, they take things away, you never see them again, which I took to mean the archaeologists or the material tracers. So they're very captivated by the way in which we, in a sense, are salvage excavating what Mother Nature has already exposed, and the fact that we really only need to take out a very small depth of sediment in order to recover the remaining material. And we're targeting the things that are exposed on the surface, because if we don't capture them now, within 1 to 2 years of exposure, those sites are completely gone. So it makes sense to recover what information you can that is going to be lost anyway. So we have a very strong sense of, we recover this material, we describe in as much detail as we possibly can, document in as much detail as we can the context, so that we can bequeath future generations the material, its context. They can reanalyze it, reinterpret it, tell their own stories from it. And in particular, we're thinking, the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of the elders will be undertaking this work themselves. That is their aspiration, and it's one of the things that we are slowly trying to help them work to fulfill.